Now, one of the great things about theatre is that an audience assumes that whatever you do on stage is meaningful, significant to the character or story. Unfortunately, if your unintentional speech patterns, habits, appearance convey something contrary to that, it can be confusing, distracting, or just downright annoying. So today's quick tip is one strategy you can use to bring clarity to your performance, to communicate more effectively. Hi, my name is Scott. This is the channel for all things musical theatre. So if you'd like to know when a new video drops, press that notifications button. Now, we've all seen that inexperienced actor. We've probably all been that inexperienced actor who wanders across the stage, mumbling lines, fumbling with random gestures. And it says much more about the uncertainty of the actor than anything about the character. So one of the disciplines of acting is learning how to filter your personal tics and habits to subdue those things that don't belong to the character or story, then emphasize those things that do. And one thing that really helps is knowing where to direct your attention. So that's today's quick tip. 3 points of focus: self, other, and universe. So this 3-point technique avoids generalization by defining 3 realms of focus. And one of them should be in play at any given moment. So there's self, and is this all there is? Other, and is this all there is? And universe. Is this all there is? And because it combines our physicality, our mental focus, as well as our emotional intensity, it always comes across as motivated. So that makes sense to us as an actor, it makes sense for our character and the circumstance, but also makes sense to the audience, so it reads. And at the same time, it also gives variety and levels to our performance. Now, other is probably the easiest to understand because it's directed at someone or something in your immediate vicinity. And that's why you can't have nice things. And because the audience can probably see the object of your focus, or at least understand who or what it's directed at, it's a tangible point of focus. And this will make sense when I talk about self and other, which is slightly more abstract. And of course, maybe you shift your attention from this person to this person to this thing, but it's always clear where it's directed and why. And it's not to say you always have to eyeball them, because that's not always natural. I mean, even in these videos, I don't always stare straight down the barrel of the lens. Sometimes when I'm thinking, my eyes move a little bit. Just a second. I said, did you put out the garbage? Maybe. See what I did there? So ultimately, subtle physical cues can indicate the presence of other. But when you first start out with this technique, it's useful to make eye contact. So self, as it suggests, is more introspective in nature. This is a bad idea. And whether it's reflective or passionate, there's an intimacy about it. I mean, even if it's fierce, like you're chastising yourself. Why did I do that? Whereas other is directed elsewhere, this close proximity focus is typical of self-talk, daydreaming, decision-making, and it's always directed inward, so somehow working out your own mind. And so even if the eyes don't always rest in one spot, they're probably softly focused, maybe even close focused. Kind of like that. Now, in contrast, universe is more outward-looking, more expansive in nature. Traditionally, it could have been called talking to the gods. Curses! Foiled again! And because it's not directed at another actor on stage, but at some distant force or consciousness, it suits large ideas. And since the audience never sees the object of your focus, it has an abstract quality that lends itself to philosophical ideas. Whether it's great questioning, my God, is it on photo day? Whether it's defiance or swearing some oath. They may take my freedom, but they'll never take my cake. And so in some ways it shares this intangible quality with self. But the difference, of course, is self is very much interior, universe is very much exterior. So it's a matter of scale. And for this reason, similar to self, it might exist in more than one literal location. Just be sure to let your eyes rest there for a moment. Otherwise, you'll look like a crazy person watching a tennis match in the sky. I mean, unless you are playing a crazy person watching a tennis match in the sky. So when you first try this technique, don't try to be subtle. Make a game of it. Make it larger than life. And not because that's how you're going to perform it, but you want to get used to feeling it in the body, just so you're absolutely clear from moment to moment where exactly you're focused. So for self, maybe start with the hands up close. What am I even doing here? For other, point, stare them down. What am I doing here? For universe, maybe go wide, scan the sky. What am I doing doing here? But use whatever mental images work for you. I mean, maybe self is kind of subterranean, other is on the horizon, universe is in the sky. But then maybe that's a bit literal for you. Maybe more abstract self, other, and universe relate to sections of the story about mind, body, or soul. The important thing is interpret it however you want. As long as it makes sense to you, as long as it somehow illuminates character and story and you can connect with it in some way. That's the important part. Okay, so how about some real-world examples? And I'll leave some links in the description to these. Epiphany, Sweeney Todd. Because these 3 points of focus are inherent in the lyrics. To himself, Sweeney says, "My Lucy lies in ashes and I'll never see my girl again." Then broadens, directly addressing the audience. "Who? You, sir? How about a shave? Come and visit. Good friend Sweeney." Then broadens again to universe, swearing an oath. "I will have vengeance. I will have salvation." And of course, it's much more impressive when he sings it. And so even though this technique applies to any scene, it's particularly good for breaking up any long piece of text, say a soliloquy or monologue. I think Scarlett O'Hara, Gone with the Wind, as God is my witness. And this is a declaration to the gods. This is pure determination. And Vivien Leigh doesn't drop her focus for a moment. This is totally directed at universe and knows how she sustains it. And of course, a long piece of text could also be a song. So if you see my Judy Method video, you'll know this example. So I think Judy Garland singing The Man That Got Away in A Star Is Born. And notice how she uses these 3 points of focus. At times, mulling over things to herself, then broadening, talking directly to the guys in the room, to other, and then to universe, broadening once again. And notice how effective it is for bringing different levels to her performance just by switching focus, self, other, universe. Or how about a monologue with repeated words or phrases or ideas? Switching focus can bring something fresh to each of those repetitions. And for that, we can't go past Sally Field in Steel Magnolias. That "I want to know" speech after the funeral. I mean, breathtaking, heartbreaking. But those sudden switches of focus between herself, her friends, and the gods or God, totally clear, extremely effective. Watch how rapid fire it is, and yet how clear and precise. Extraordinary. But this technique is also a real godsend at auditions, because we have a tendency to want to eyeball the people on the panel, and that can be really off-putting for them. So even if we're eyeballing them a bit for other, by being able to switch focus to self and broadening to universe, just takes the focus off them a little bit. And for the same reason, this is really good in large theatres, because by switching between pondering self to talking to universe, it justifies lifting our focus up to the balcony. You can sometimes feel left out if we're just kind of stage bound with other actors. And remember, this is a technique, not a rule. You don't go into a scene starting with the 3-point technique. But if you find that you're not quite sure where to focus your attention, if you feel like you need just a little more dynamics in your performance or something else, then add this to your checklist. It might be the strategy you need. But I'd love to hear how you put this into practice. And if you already use this technique, tell me about it. Till then, arrivederci. They may take my freedom, but they'll never take my cake. You're welcome.